So, not so long ago, I went down the journey of painting up some Ultramarines in my retro style that my dad used to paint my old Ultramarines in. And I loved it, and I got well and truly hooked. So in that video, I kind of started to nail down my recipe, but in this video, I well and truly nailed down my recipe, and also my procedure for stripping models, because that was hell. So after doing that video, I was hooked and I wanted to do a lot more like Firstborn Space Marines and Retro Space Marines, just pure Ultramarine nostalgia stuff. So I went onto eBay and I made a lot of mistakes. Now when I say mistakes, I just mean that I put lots of bids in for things and I won them all. And I didn't bid that much, so I ended up with loads. Some of it is still on the shelf behind me, so I've got I ended up with 80 Space Marines, including a whole bunch of Terminators, Librarians, old Ultramarine Commanders, just loads of base units, Devastators, the whole lot. So I got those. They all arrived in various states of repair, so some were pretty good, some were just not. Some of them were so caked in paint that it was just you'd need a toothpick to snap it out of there. It was incredible. Some of them had weird glue. Some of them had been glued with this really, I don't know, it must have been a craft glue or something. It was this brown stodgy glue that was stuck all over. So a lot of them took a lot of repair. Now previously I've used Dettol for stripping all my models down and getting them sorted. No, it works pretty well, but it's horrible. It smells, it becomes stodgy. It's really awful. Once you've done actually stripping the models, you've got to let it dry, otherwise it becomes this stodgy mess. And loads of you recommended using just 99% IPA. So I figured, let's give that a go. So I dumped all these models into just a big tub of IPA. I've got loads of that lying around because of all my 3D printing stuff. And you know what? Thanks. What a great recommendation. It works perfectly fine. Now, if you're out there and you're wondering, will my models melt? Well, no. Games Workshop plastic seems to last forever. I've had some stuck in there for now 3 months that I've just not taken out. When I've checked on them, the plastic is absolutely fine. The paint sloshes off nicely, no issues there. Obviously, if you are getting stuff fine cast, don't put that in there because that's resin, and resin doesn't like to be left in IPA to soak. And just test it out before you do it with other types of model. But Games Workshop plastic, the old stuff, seems to work perfectly fine. So I stripped loads of these down, got them all cleaned up, then started to reassemble them, re-glue them all together, and then got on with some painting. And it's been such a fun process because there's just loads and loads of things. Now, throughout this process, I painted up a whole bunch of different things. I've done this Devastator squad, this Assault Marine squad. I also did some old school Scouts. I've never actually painted those. I painted the new ones in Blood Angel style. So doing these ones in Ultramarine stuff, I really liked the way they actually turned out. I've always thought they looked kind of goofy, but I think these look pretty fun actually. I also got another Dreadnought to try and match up with my old Dreadnought that my dad painted for me. I think I've got that pretty close as well. There's loads of stuff. I've done a few Commanders. And then during that process, kind of a bit of a side thing that I've already done a video on, but I also got some of the Horus Heresy stuff from the new Saturn 9 box set and turned them into Ultramarines. I also got this Terminator captain and then this Ultramarines captain as well. And all in all, I really, really like these. I think these are looking fantastic. So in terms of my recipe, it's pretty simple. I use Ultramarine Blue by Army Painter Air through the airbrush. That just gets my initial base coat down. After that, I then picked up this Pro Acryl starter box set, and I think I mentioned this in my Horus Heresy painting stuff. But for anyone out there who wants to know what I'm doing to get my Ultramarines to look this retro on pop, a lot of it is these Pro Acryl paints, and I think these work really, really nicely. The red from the starter set just looks fantastic. It comes out very, very nicely. It's got really good coverage. The yellow looks really good in the end, but it takes 3 or 4 coats to get it looking good. You could probably use a more saturated or just a better coverage yellow as a base instead of a darker one, and then layer it up using these afterwards. But this is what I've been working with so far, and it looks lovely once it's done. It just takes some working. Any of the whites that come with this set as well have amazing coverage. It's like magic. Literally, you just put it on once and you're done. You don't need to do multiple coats. So it's great for doing all of those little details like the scroll work and stuff like that. It just goes on there so beautifully. And then the greens for things like the lenses. So these Pro Acryl paints, the little starter set that you get, is just great for using these. For the most part, I haven't done much highlighting for any of these because I wanted to keep them that old retro style. But if I have been doing any highlighting, I've been mixing this faded Ultramarine by Pro Acryl with the base Ultramarine Air from Army Painter and doing a 50-50 mix of that and using that to do some edge highlighting when I'm doing things like Captains or Terminators or any of the vehicles, this works really, really nicely. If you use just the faded Ultramarine, I think it takes it too light and it really stands out. So it's just a nice compromise between those. Once you've done your base coats, it's mostly just washes. So I do a lot of Nuln Oil washes on these, and I go quite heavy with it, but I try to make sure I pin wash it. So rather than just sloshing it all over the model and then having to do a lot of cleanup afterwards, I just really try and drop it into all the recesses, the separation between like the shoulder trim and then the shoulder pad, just getting it in there, and that helps to give it a lot of contrast. And again, that same sort of style that you used to kind of kick around with retro stuff and the stuff that my dad used to do, and I really, really like it. It just makes the models really pop. And then after that, just go back in and clean up. If you've got any spillage on like the yellow especially, you just need to go over it and like clean it up. And on the blue, some of the paneling, I just go back in there with that base Ultramarine air that I'd used, put that over the top of it. It cleans it up very, very nicely. And then it's over to the varnish stage. With the first video I did of this, I did what my dad had always been doing. He used to gloss varnish them, and it makes them really, really shiny. So I did that as well. But actually, it makes them look far, far too shiny. So I've gone for the Army Painter Satin Varnish, which is a lovely go-between. So it gives a really nice shine without making them look really, really wet and too shiny. So it's just a really nice go-between between just having them as matte and also as gloss. The other good thing about this as well is the Pro Acrylic paints are really, 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 really matte. Like, they are incredibly matte when you're working with them. So it makes the model look very flat. And when you're dealing with something like power armor, it doesn't look quite right. But once you put the satin varnish on there, it just helps to kind of give a bit more lustrosity. That's not a word, but I'm running with it. Basing, I just use this basing mixed by Geek Gaming Scenics. It's just a really nice font that goes on there. It's a ground cover. I think it looks great. And then I rim all the bases with green. And it's this old green. Where is it? And the green I've been using for that is Feral Green Air by Army Painter. Again, it's not quite a full match for Goblin Green, but it's close enough. And I think, again, it matches them all quite nicely. So I've gone wild with my Space Marines. Like, my Ultramarine army is going crazy. I also went back in, and some of the old Primaris Marines that I did, this must be like 2.5 years ago now, I did some Primaris Marines, but I gave them like the original helmet. I also kind of like carved some bits in there, put some Ultramarine bits on it as well, like flags on the top of the backpack to make them look like retro Primaris Marines. They were really quite dark and there wasn't much like saturation or anything. So I went back in there and I did like all the pads. I made the blues a bit brighter. I made all the reds a lot more vibrant as well. So I brought them to match the style of everything else I've been doing. And I've been having so much fun with this. I've made a few commanders as well. And I've had a lot of fun doing those and mixing and matching some of the 3D printed helmets and stuff like that. But next on the list is, which I still need to go through all the other stuff that I've got. Like, I've still got about 50 or 60 Marines I need to do and some of the Saturnine stuff. But I went to Warhammer World. I got this. Oh. Also, Warhammer World was amazing, by the way. I'll be trying to do something similar, not as anywhere near as close to them, but like a display and everything else at some point in the future. But I got this, which is the HQ command tanks. And I'm going to be playing with this and do some retro stuff with it. And I'm very excited for that. So that'll probably be my next Space Marine video. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, throw them down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer those. But in the meantime, stay safe. Let me know what sort of projects you're working on, and I'll see you soon. Ta-ra.